Okay, now the first one is about to check whether the last digit of a number entered by user is a multiple of 3. Right, now how could you do it? Right, now we need to get the user input. Now I can't remember how to get the user input. Can anyone tell me quickly? How can you get the user input? Hello? How can you get a user input? Yes, Nipun.
So you have to use input.
Using input method. Okay. Right, now x equals, we need to convert it to an integer. Then we could use the input method, because we know that when you take an input from the input method, it takes as a string. Therefore, we need to get a number. Then we're going to convert into int. Right, now we're going to ask user to enter the number. And then we need to get the last digit. Last digit. If you modulus the number by 10, right, that means you divided by 10 and the remaining value. That's going to be the last digit. And thereafter, it says check whether it is a multiple of 3, and then you can say y modulus 3 if it is equals to 0. If y modulus 3 equals to 0, then you can print yes. Last digit is divisible by 2. Else, right now we can have the else part. Print not. Last digit is not divisible by 3. Right, then let's invoke this file. Number 5, not divisible by 3. And if it is 43, divisible by 3. 59, divisible by 3. 71, not divisible by 3. The first task is done. Right, the second one very easy, right? Okay, quickly do it and send me the answer, please. I think 2 means it'll be more than enough. Therefore, quickly tell me. Okay, let's try out what Nipun has sent me. Right. You ask user to enter the salary and number of years. Then you have to do this calculation if and only if. You have to do this calculation if and only if the number of years, if it is greater than or equals to 5, then only you need to do this. That means salary into 15 divided by 100 plus divided by 100. Okay. Right. Okay, now as Taruka has sent me, right, you can display you are not entitled for the if it is the number of years is less, you would say you are not entitled for right. The second one also done. The third one, let's do it quickly. Okay, quickly do the third one and send me the answer, please. Okay, now here we have to check whether if the given mark is within this range, we need to display according to the mark, we need to display the grade. Right, then how can we do this? Right, now, let's say, right, okay. We need to ask user to enter the marks. Marks. Okay, then we have to ask user to enter the marks. Right. And we'll ask user to enter the name as well first initially. Name. Right. And afterwards, if the mark is less than 25, below 25, if the mark less than 25, if the mark below 25, less than or equals to 20 or less than 25. Right, if the mark is less than 25, we need to display F. Okay, let's say we'll have a variable called grade. Okay, now we can display now. Right. If mark is greater than 25, if the mark is greater than 25, and if the mark is greater than 25, greater than or equals to 25, and mark is less than 45. You need to display E. If the mark is greater than 45 and less than 50, it has to display D. If the mark is greater than or equals to 50 and less than 60, it has to be C. If it is greater than or equals to 60 and less than 80, it has to be B. If the mark is greater than or equals to 80, we need to say A. Right, now let's see whether it works. Name John, marks, let's say 28. It says E. If it is mark is 15, it says F. If the name is something, and if you get 45, it says D. And if it is 55, C. If it is 89, A. If it is 80, A. Right, if it is 79, B. Likewise, you will get the answer. Right, okay, now this is how it works. Right now, I have a question. The first question is, if the mark is 48, how many if conditions will get executed in this scenario? If the mark is 48.
3.
Sorry?
3.
Only 3. Now if I say
Sir,
48.
there is a problem. I don't know if it is correct or not. When at the first step, the marks are filtered below 25 marks are there. When you go to the second step, those marks they are you are not taking that 25 below 25 marks. Is it
Okay.
necessary to give that unconditional marks
Right.
greater than
Okay, now
right, sir. Right.
now
I
have you
made the
seen
mistake.
this?
Yeah.
What is
I
it?
under okay. I make the mistake.
No, the problem is no. You have misunderstood, like, because everything was in the same place. Now, yes, actually, like when I say, okay, my question I'm gonna ask again. If you enter the mark as 48, my question is, how many if conditions will get evaluated?
See, all the if conditions,
All if conditions. Okay, why is it?
because indentation is not considered here
Yes, all these are separate if
at
conditions.
the same
All
level.
these are separate individual if conditions. Right. Now, no link. Even though this is true, even though you enter mark as 10, each and every if condition will get executed, because again it will check whether the mark is less than 10, mark is less than 25. Again it will check this condition, again it will check this condition. Likewise, even though whatever the value you enter, but you will get the output. Accordingly, you will get the output as given condition. But the problem here is, whatever the condition get executed, whether it becomes true or false, all the given conditions will get executed, because these if conditions are separate if conditions. Therefore, how can you overcome it? Now it's a waste of resources, because even though the first if condition executed, the rest of the if conditions are getting executed. Therefore, for an example, if you assume in order to process one if condition, if it takes let's say X amount of cost, then if there are 10 if conditions, then the cost is going to be 10x. But it has to be only 1x, because now it has to be only if it is mark is 8. That means from the first if condition, it has to stop. But now it's not the case. Now, even though the first if condition get executed and the rest of the conditions get false, even though it checked all the if conditions. Therefore, every if condition get executed in this scenario. Therefore, that's the disadvantage here. Then how can we overcome it? How can we overcome it? Then we could go with what? Then we
Indentation.
could, if else if ladder, yes, we can go with if else if. We can have the nested ifs. We can have the nested ifs. We can have the nested if statements. Right now, that is what you call as if this is false. Right now, that means else. If mark is greater than, if the mark is not less than 25, that means the mark has to be greater than 25. Right, then you can have else if. You can use using the else if, right? Then what you're going to do is, instead of writing else and inside that again writing if, you could use else if mark is greater than 25. Else if. Now else if. Right now what that means now, if the mark is greater than, if mark is less than 25, if it is false, obviously what can you say about the mark at this level? If this is false, if this condition is false, that means what can you say about the marks?
Greater than 25.
Greater than 25, yes. Then you don't have to worry, check about this. Why? We have already checked that in the previously. Mark is less than 25 false. That means mark is greater than 25. Then what are you going to check? Now you're going to check whether the mark is less than 45. Even this condition is false. Even this is false. That means what? Marks are not less than 45. That means what? Marks are greater than 45. Then we don't have to have else if. Then we don't have to check again this thing. We have to check whether the mark is less than 50. Now, if this is false, that means what? Marks are not less than 50, above or equal to 50. Then we can say else if. We don't have to check whether it is less than 50. Now, we can simply check whether it is less than 60. Else if the mark is less than 80. If the mark is not less than 80 means, obviously we know that it's going to be
Else.
100, above 80. That means you can have else. Right now, in this scenario, right now, okay, else, right. Now, if I say John, and if I say 8, now only this if condition get executed if mark is less than 25. And if I say 48, this will checked, this become false, therefore it's gonna check this less than 45, this is gonna be false, therefore this also will check. Now again this will check less than 50, true, therefore it will print grade D, therefore only 3 conditions got executed. Right, but now if you say 98, and now you know that all these conditions will get executed. It will check the first one false, second one false, third one false, fourth one false, fifth one false. Therefore, it's going to go to the else and then it will print it. This is how it works. Is that clear? Any questions, please ask. Right now, okay, now calculate the water bill if the number of units, if the units is within 0 to 100, 0 to 50 unit, and then unit price, fixed price, fixed charge, fixed cost. Unit price 10, fixed charge is 150. If the units is in between 50 to 100, unit price is 15 and 250. If it is 100 to 200, unit charge is 35, fixed charge is 500. If it is 200 to 400, unit charge is 45 per unit and then 150. If it is above 400, unit charge is 100 per unit and then 1000. Right. Ask user to enter the units consumed and print and calculate the bill. Right. First, okay, now, okay, if I have to use first 0 to 100, and then next. After. Right. Okay. Do this quickly. Right. If, for an example, if the number of units is 51, if the number of units is 51, if the number of units is 51, it has to be the cost gonna be what? 50 to 10 would be 500 plus 1 into 15 plus 250. Right, this is going to be the cost for the first 15. It's 50 into 10 would be 500, and for the next one unit 15 rupees, 15, and then the fixed charge is 250. Like this is how you should calculate, right, for an example. Okay, quickly do it. Any questions you better ask now. Okay, we have to get the number of units first. Units. If the number of units consumed. Right now, units. If the units If the units, let's including 50th unit, right? 0 to 50 units. If the units less than or equals to 50. If the units less than or equals to 50, it's gonna be, let's say I'm gonna have the bill equals 0. That's gonna be bill value gonna be equals to number of units multiplied by 10 plus 150. If the number of units is less than or equals to 100, units less than or equals to 100, then it's gonna be right now 550 into 10, 50 multiplied by 10 plus units minus 50, units minus 50 into 15 plus 250. If the units is equals to less than or equals to less than or equals to 200, bill equals to 50 into 10 plus another 50 into 15 plus units minus 100 into 35 plus 500. If it is less than or equals to 400, then 15 to 10 into 15 into 15 plus 100 to 200. 100 into 35 plus units minus 200 into 45 plus 750 else if that means above 400, not less than 400. After that, we can say the value is 15 into 10 plus 15 into 15 plus 100 into 35 plus 100 to 200 and 200 to 400. 200 into 45 plus into 45 plus units minus 400 multiplied by 100 plus 1000. And we can say the units times the total amount, the bill value. Unit is right, bill value. It's gonna be 500 and 767, 65, right? If it is 150, okay, mark. This has to be units, right? Right. Like you can see, if it is 250 bill value, likewise you will see how you calculate it. Right. Okay, I have received one answer as well. Let's see. Taruka has sent me the answer. Okay, exactly the same way. Right, good. Okay, this is what he has sent me. Right. Now this is what he has sent me. The same baby. Right. Okay. And then quickly go through this, and then if you have any questions, quickly ask. And then I'm gonna go with the right now. That's what I'm gonna start with the while loops now, the looping constructs. Any questions from if, else if? You can ask now. And quickly check whether whatever the answer you wrote, whether it is right or not. If not, what was the reason? Figure it out. Any questions you can ask now. Okay, now here now we know about how to make use if conditions whenever you need to based on the statement, based on the given values, checking for the exact conditions, and then if the condition has been met, to do something. Likewise, you know how to use the if conditions, if else, if ladder. We know that. Like now, if you want to repeat the same thing again and again, we could use loops, right? Then there are two looping constructs available in Python. Like those you can call it as while loop and the for loops. Right now, we'll start with the while loop. While loop can that means we use while loops when we have no clue that how many times we need to run the loop. That means until a condition become false, if you want to run, we can use the while loop. Now, for an example, let's say you can start the while loop with the keyword while. Okay, beforehand, let's say I have variable called I equals 10, and I'm going to say while I less than 10, I less than 10. I want to print I value. I less than 10, print I value. And then let's say if I have I minus minus, right? If I have I minus minus, then I minus equals 1. I equals I minus 1 if I have, right? Now, if I run this code, now you can see here, right? While I less than 10, I is equals 10. Therefore, I less than 10 false, right? If I equals 0, let's say I equals 0. If I is equals 0, now I less than 10 condition is true because I is less than 10 always. Now what has happened is I have written the condition in the body, the statement saying I is equals to I minus 1. Every time the loop runs, I value get decreased by 1. Therefore, now this is continuously running. See, now more than 200,000 the loop has run. Right. Therefore, now because this never meets this statement, right? This condition will never become false because now inside the body, each time the loop runs, it make a progress not towards to its termination. That means every time it runs, I value decrease by 1. Therefore, the condition is I less than 10. Once if I less than 10, the condition is true, then the program will run. Now we can see now it has run 500,000 times, so more than 500,000 times. In that case, if you want to stop, press Ctrl C. That is how you put give a keyboard interrupt, Ctrl C, and then you could stop it. Right, now the condition, like say now I less than 10, every time if I want to increase the I value by 1, I plus C equals 1, I equals I plus 1. Right, now this will start from 1 to 10. Sorry, 0 to 10 because I started from 0. And 9 less than 10, it will print 9. 10 less than 10, it will become false. Therefore, it will print like this. Right now, as long as I value is less than 10, this loop will execute. Right, okay, try out this quickly. Right now, let's say you want to print only, if I ask you to, okay, write a program to display the values, okay, even numbers in between 0 to 50, even numbers in between 0 to 50, then you should know I start from 0, and then if every time I value increase by 2, yes, then this would display only the even numbers in between 0 to 50. Then you can easily do it. Or else, if you want to increase the I value by 1, you can say I equals plus C equals 1, but I want to display this if and only if, you can use if condition. Now, if I modulus 2, if I modulus 2, if it is equal to 0, then only I want to display this. I want to display this. Otherwise, I don't want. Right, then only it would get displayed. Right now, you could do it like this as well. Right, okay, change the code to display only the odd numbers from 0 to, okay, now 10 to 60. Odd numbers in between 10 to 60. Quickly do it. Send it to me via chat, and in the meantime, write code to display this sequence. Up to 300. 300, not 3000. Multiplication table of any given number. Right, okay, let's see. I have received the answer for the first one. I lie less than equals 300, print I plus C equals 10. I plus C equals 10. Right, now let's see. While I less than, okay, right now. Okay, now in order to write this series, what you have to do, I equals, let's say 0. Okay, starting from 10, while I less than or equals to 300. And we can say print I and I equals I plus 10. Right now, this would do the task. It would print from 10 to 300 values. Right now, we print the values with the period of 10. Step value is 10. Right now, the second one, in order to print the values in the reverse order. Right now, that's also very easy. Right now, I starting from 10, where the I value is greater than, I value is greater than or equals 0, greater than or equals 0, then print I, where I value is I equals I minus 1. Right, every time I value decrease by 1. Then you can get right now you can do the second one, 10 to 0 values you would print. And this is what we have done now so far. The multiplication table of any given number, you have to do it now. Let's say up to 20, you have to ask user to enter the number. N equals int. Inside this, we're going to get the number, input, number. Right. Now we have to write the while loop. I don't know the rest. Let's say I equals 0. I equals 0, and then I want to print up to 12. Let's say I less than or equals to 12. All right. Now thereafter, it's up to you to figure out how to do this. Multiplication table, I want you to print. Think how to do it and send me the answer quickly. Right? Now we have to ask user to okay, print. We need to print the I value, and multiplied by I value multiplied by n value multiplied by n value multiplied by I is equals to we need to multiply n value by I. Number 5. All right, and thereafter now, if you don't make the progress towards its termination, this would be running infinitely like this. Therefore, every time we run this, we need to increase the I value by 1. I plus C equals 1. Good. Now this would display like this. Good. Right, okay, now I want you to write a program to get the sum of 10 user input numbers. Right, you need to get 10 numbers from the user and then get the sum of that quickly, and then thereafter we need to find out the maximum and the minimum as well. Again, you have to ask user to enter 10 numbers and get the sum of those 10 numbers entered, and then finally display the max and the min. Okay, quickly do it. You need to ask user to enter the 10 numbers. Right? You can ask user to enter the number. And then you have variable called as sum equals sum plus n, sum equals sum plus n, and initially I'm going to set the sum value as 0. And then I'm going to have I value or the count value. Count is equal increased by 1. When the count starting from 0, and when the count reaches to 10, less than 10, I need to stop this, and then I'm gonna get the print. The total is somewhere, right? Okay, right. Numbers, let's say. You get the total is 45. Likewise, you can get the numbers, right? Okay, can you ask user to enter? Can you ask user to enter two numbers, and within those two numbers? Okay, Sanath, right? Last digit check a previous one, no? Right. Right. Then what you're gonna do? I think that's enough from Python, no? Sorry, while loops. Mm, 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 mm. Let's say now you are asking user to make a guess. Right. Okay. Now oh, like now, how can you do this? Mm, 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 mm. Okay, now you keep on asking user to enter a number, and then once user enter a number, this has to stop. Right now, you keep on asking user to enter a number, enter a number, enter a number likewise, and if you press -1, it's gonna stop. Okay, how can you do that? Right now, we'll do it like this now. Okay, now okay, this we'll use how to use the else statement with while loop as well. Now I equals 0, I less than 10, and then after I'm gonna display the I'm gonna print the I value. I'm gonna print the I value here, and thereafter I'm gonna display. That means this will print from 1. This will print 1, 2, 3, likewise up to 10, up to 9, and thereafter I'm gonna have the else statement. Else the loop has finished. Right. Condition false. False. Right. Likewise, okay, run this and see what happens here. If I equals 0, what happens? And if I equals 10, what happens? Let's say now if I equals 10, now you can see the condition is false. 10 less than 10 false, therefore loop condition false. And if it is 0, then it runs from 0 to 9, and after the condition false, it displays loop condition false. Right, okay, try this one, how to use the else statement. That means once the loop is finished or once the condition is false, you can use the else statement. Right, then yes, if when the condition become false, now this would execute the else statement. Right, now that is one thing we need to remember. Right, that means else statement we can use after the while loop finishes. When the condition is no longer true or the condition become false, the else statement of the while get executed. Right, now if you use a break statement, inside the loop, now remember, if you use a break statement inside the loop, now it's going to immediately exit from the loop. Now for an example, now if I'm going to say if I is equals to 5, let's say if I is equals to 5, if I is equals to 5, I'm going to say break. I'm going to say break. If I is equals to 5, break. Else print I. Now let's say when I become 5, it's gonna break. Now what happens now? If I run this. Okay, now again, my bad. We have to make a progress towards its termination. Right. Right now, once it will go up to 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. When then I become 5, 5 is equals to 5 true. When 5 become 5 equals 5 become true, it's gonna hit the break statement. That means it's gonna immediately exit from the loop. It's gonna exit from the loop. It will exit from the loop. Right now, my question is, now you know that if the break statement hit inside the loop, it will stop the loop. Even the condition is true, it will stop the loop when the break statement hits, right? When the break statement hit, if inside even the condition is true, condition is valid, it will stop the loop, right? Then try to change this break keyword with the continue and tell me what will happen. If you do it continue statement instead of break, what will happen? Try out and tell me. If you use the continue, now you know that if you use the break statement, it's gonna stop. Even though the loop condition is true, it's gonna immediately exit from the loop. Now, if it is continue, if you use the continue keyword, now what happens? Now let's say, now if you run this, continue, right? Now, why it goes up to around 4 and then it stops? Why? Right, let me change the code like this. When I modulus 2, if I modulus 2 equals 0, continue, otherwise print. Right, now what happens now? The program stopped from this point. Why? Now I modulus 2, 0 modulus 2 is equals to 0, then it goes to the next iteration, but the next iteration means again 0 because it has not got increased. It has not increased. Therefore, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this I plus plus, I plus equals 1 to the top, and then I'm going to do it. Now you can see what numbers get printed and why. What happens? Any idea, please? Okay, try to understand the code and tell me what happens now in here. Yes, anyone please, what happens now? Now remember when you use the continuous statement here, now for example, now I equals 0 at the beginning, 0 less than 10 true, then I become 1. 1 modulus 2 is not equals to 0, therefore if condition got false, therefore it's going to print 1. Now again 1 less than 10 true, therefore I increase by 1, 2. 2 modulus 2 equals 0 true, then it hits continue. Continue means it goes to the next iteration. It will stop the current iteration and it goes to the beginning. Now what happens here is it will stop from here and then it will go to the next iteration. It will stop from here and it will move to the next iteration. Here it will stop from here and it will move to the next iteration. Again, 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 modulus 2 not equals. Therefore, this does not get executed. Then again, it will print 3. And then the next time 4 modulus 2 is equals to 0, then again continue. Therefore, without executing this print, it's going to go to the next iteration. Therefore, remember, if the continue statement get executed, that means it will stop the current iteration and it will stop the current iteration and it will continue with the next. It will stop the current iteration and continue to the next. It will stop the current iteration and continue to the next. That is what happens. Right now, using a while loop, we can easily do it using for loop. All right. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, now as the last question from the while loop, right now, ask user to enter 10 numbers from the get 10 inputs from the user, 10 inputs from the user, and then find out max, min, and the sum. Max, min, and the sum. 10 inputs from the user, and then get the max, min, and the sum. Okay, quickly do it. 10 inputs from the user and get the max, min, and the sum of the entered values. And those entered values should be only positive numbers, 10 positive inputs. Even user may enter negative numbers, right? User may enter negative numbers, then you need to skip those and you need only count positive numbers. Get 10 positive inputs until user enter 10 positive numbers. This loop has to run, repeatedly asking enter number likewise. And once 10 numbers inserted, you need to get the maximum number, minimum number, and the sum and the average. That's it. Quickly do it. I as the count. Okay, let's say count equals 0. And while count less than 10, since start from 0, it's okay. Then I'm going to check whether I'm going to ask user to enter the number n equals int. We can ask user to enter the number, input number. Right, and thereafter, once you get the number, we can check whether if n is greater than if n is greater than 0. Positive numbers only. If n is greater than 0, if true, then only we need to increase the count by 1. Count by 1. Count equals count plus count equals count plus 1 or count plus equals 1. And at the same time, we can have max equals 0 and min equals 0, max equals 0, min equals 0. And we can have the sum equals 0, right? Then we can have if n is less than 0, right? If n is greater than 0, then only it's a positive number, then only we're going to increase the count by 1. Then we're going to check whether if max is if the count if the n is greater than max, if n is greater than max, right now we need to set the max is equals to n. And also I'm going to have if n is smaller than, if n is smaller than the minimum, then we can say minimum is the n. And afterwards, we can increase the sum value as well. Sum equals sum plus n. That means sum plus equals n, right? And then finally, sum plus equals n. And then you can say, look, okay, this condition I don't need now. Then I'm gonna print okay, the maximum value. Max value as max. Max min, and then max min, then the sum, then the average, sum divided by 10, That's it. We're gonna enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minus 4, minus 5, minus 6, minus 7, minus 8, 0, minus 9, minus 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maximum 10, a minimum 0, sum is 55, and average is 5.5. Because minimum we set it as 0, and if it is a positive values we can have only, then we would set it as the minimum as 1. Right. Then here if you have that 1, then it will display as right. This is how you do it using the while loop. Right, now then any questions from the while loop? Now shall we go for the for loop? Okay, then if there is no questions, then we can continue with the for loops. Right now, for loops also are used to iterate in some collections or sequences. Right now, for an example, if you want to, let's say we have a string. We can have 4 I in hello world. I in hello world. Likewise, now we could print iterate through this string now one by character. We could go with the using the loops, right? Using the for loop. Right now, like previously, if you want to deal with the numbers, right now, then if you want to run, let's say 100 times, if you want to run for loop 100 times, then we have to use the range method combination with the for loop. Then we have a range method. When it comes to the range, now first you need to know about what is the range method. Now, when it comes to the range method, right now range method or the range function returns a sequence of numbers. Right now, if you just use the range, if you just use the range with just a one value, if you use just range with let's say 10, that means starts from 0 to 10, 0 to 10, and increase 1 by 1, incremented by 1 each time. If I say range 10, that means if I pass only one value. Right. Now, if you pass, two values, now if you pass two values, right now that means starting value and the end value. Now what will happen? What do you think? If you pass two values, just tell me. Now, if you pass two values and then range and 1 and 10, then if you enter range 1 and 10, that means it will start from 1, starts from 1 to 10, 1 to 10, and incremented by 1. That means it will increase by 1. And then if you have range 1, 10, and 2, likewise, then that means starts from, this is going to starts from 1, goes up to 10, but increments by 2. Therefore, now you can see the range method or the range function has 3 parameters: start, stop, and end. Sorry, start, stop, and step. Right, now start is right now is optional. Now in the range method, start is optional. But stop is required. We need to have the stop. And the step is also optional. Therefore, that's why here, if you just pass only one value, that would be taken as the stop. Right now you have passed the value to stop. If you have passed 2 values, then it will be taken as start and stop. If you have passed 3 values, then that would be taken as start, stop, and the step. Start, stop, and the step. Right now, that is how the range function works. Therefore, remember the range function is used to, because range function returns a sequence of numbers starting from the given number. If there is no number specified, then starting from 0. And it increments by 1 by default unless you haven't defined a step value. And it will stop before the specified number. Now here, every time it will stop before the 10. Right, now let's see how we could use the range method with the for loop. Right, now for I in range, we can say for I in range, if I say 10, for I in range 10, and if I print I. Now you can see starting from 0, the range method, I have given only stop value, starting from 0, default, by default starting from 0, and goes up to 10, therefore stops by 9. Up before the stop value, it's gonna stop. And every time increase by 1. Every time it increases by 1. If I say 1 and 10, 1 comma, let's say 15. Right, now starting from 1 and goes up to 15, that means stop by 14 and is increased by 1 every time. If I say 1, 15 and step value as 2, right now, it's going to increase, start from 1, goes up to 15, that means stop before 15, but every time it will increase by 2. Then 1 plus 2, 3, 3 plus 2, 5, 5 plus 2, 7, 9, 11, 13, likewise, it will work. And this is how the range method works. Okay, quickly try out how the range function works. I'll give you 2 minutes. Right, then we will try some exercises with how to work with the for loops. Right. Okay, before that, right now I'm printing. Right, okay. Now we will try with what? Right, now let's say we'll try to figure out what is the factorial number. If it is factorial 5, okay, that is calculated by 5 into 4 into 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. If it is factorial 4, that calculated by 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Right, and then let's say and also okay, before we go into the factorial, let's try to print 100 to 1, 100 to 1, 100 to 1 as likewise in the pattern 100, 98, 96, 94, likewise. I want you to print up to 0. I want you to do it using a for loop with the range function. You quickly try out how to do it. Right now, then you have to start from 100. Start value 100, end value 0, and every time you need to go with -2. Then if you want to go up to 0 also should get printed, then you can say -1. Then start from 100 and reduce up to 0 here. This is how it works. Right, okay, let's try to calculate the factorial value first. And they are using a while loop first, we'll do it, and thereafter we'll try to do it using the for loop. 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, factorial 4 is equals to 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Likewise, it works. Like now, we know to calculate the factorial value. Let's say now, if you want to get the number to use the factorial value, you can ask you to enter the number. Right, and then once you get the number, we can have let's say we'll have always factorial number is multiple of this, right? Right now, x equals f, x equals n, and start equals result equals 1, while x not equals 0, while x not equals 0, result equals result multiplied by result multiplied by x. F minus equals 1. And then that's it. Then you can say print factorial n is factorial n is result. Right now this is x layer. $24 if it is factorial 3, 6 if it is factorial 7. Likewise, you will get the values. Right, using the loop, while loop, you could do it. Right now, if you want to do the same thing using the for loop, now let's see, you're gonna get the number user wants to, and let's say the result is equals to 1. Like now, 84. I in range. Starting from 1, now we have to start from 1. 1, 2, that goes up to n. Okay, then there'll be problem, right? N plus 1. Okay, n plus 1. Result is equals to result multiplied by I. Then the factorial of n is result. See, both gives you the same answer. Right, now this is how you calculate the factorial using a for loop as well as a while loop. Right now, using any looping construct, I don't mind. I want you to try this pattern. I want you to print this pattern using any looping construct. Try out quickly. Right now, any idea how to do this? Right now, in order to print this asterisk using for loop, since we are talking about the for loop, right, let's say up to 5 or whatever the user entered number, if you want to go up to, then we can say for I in range to n, right? And then you're going to have another loop for j in range to I plus 1, which is right, and then we can print we need to print on the same line, therefore I'm going to print asterisk comma end equals, right, I want to print on the same line, and after this for loop finishes I want to print an empty line. Then we'll see how it works. Right, if it is 10, it will go up to 10 numbers like this. Now, this is how it works. Right now, actually, what happens here? Right now, I have used a for loop inside a for loop. Why? That is because right now, first for loop is to run through the rows here. Likewise, if it is 10 numbers, then I want to run 10 times, 10 lines. Therefore, in order to go row by row, I'm using the first for loop. And each time the first for loop executed, I want to print asterisks according to that number of times. Now, initially, if I start from in the first line, you can see I want to print only one asterisk. Then, when I equals 0, then I'm gonna this for loop, second for loop, gonna go up to j in range I plus 1. That means for j in range 1. That means starting from 0 goes up to 1. That means one time it's going to print an asterisk. And then after the for loop finishes, it's going to go to the next line. Then the next line, it will be a blank print statement. Therefore, cursor will move to the next line. Right, now this is what happens. Right now, initially, it will print the asterisk. The cursor will move to the next line. Then, now for the first for loop executes. Now, I value is 2 now. So, I value is 1. When I equals 0. Right now, let me write this clearly.
Sir, can you say what is this end within the print method?
Okay. We'll do that first. Right, then just forget this for a while. Right, now, if you use a print statement, now what happens? Right now, I'm gonna leave this for a while. Now, if I use a print statement, hello, hello, and then I'm going to use another print statement, world. Right. Now, if I use two separate print statements, now, why? Right. Now it prints hello, and then the cursor moves to the next line. See, the cursor moves, it prints hello, and then the cursor moves to the next line, and then it prints word. Cursor moves to the next line and prints the word. Right. Now, if I don't want to cursor to move to the next line, that means if I want to print on the line and stay on the same line, then I have to use the print method. Now I have to use the print method with the right now this character escape sequence. I have to use saying don't go to the next line, like don't go to the next line. That's what I want to do. Right, then do this, you're going to use end equals. Right now, let's say we can have Python. In Python, in the print statement, if you use the end equals and to like that empty string I'm using, that is end parameter, I'm using end parameter, right? Therefore, that happens because the default Python print statement ends with a new line. Now here it goes with a new line. Now it goes with a new line. Now here this ends with a new line. Remember, this ends with a new line. It ends with a new line. The default print methods ends with a new line. Therefore, if you want to avoid, that means print without the new line, we can use that with character escape sequences. Right now, for an example, if you use hello and comma end equals, and if I use double quotes here, and then what happens here is right now it will print hello, and the cursor will stay on the same line, and right, and thereafter it will remove the space, and then it will print the word. Right now, if I use asterisk here, hello in with asterisk, now what happens? Now it will end, statement will end with an asterisk. See, hello asterisk word. That means that it ends the output. That means it will print hello, and then it will end the output with the asterisk. Now if I have used the at symbol here, right, then here it will print hello at world. Right now, if I use empty string, therefore nothing would display. That's why nothing would display. And then hello, it ends the hello line, which ends with an empty string. And then world, hello and world. Likewise, it will happens like that. Means if you use the end, that means if you use the end parameter, that means print function with the end parameter. If you use the end parameter, it will now here it will by default, remember the by default, now print function comes with the end parameter. By default end parameter contains /n. That means by default end parameter contains /n. That means that's why it goes to the new line character. /n means new line. Since it is by default, it contains /n, that's why it goes to the next line. Therefore, we need to stop that. Now, if I remove the /n, right, then it gonna print, right, that means empty string after the first whatever the statement printed, and thereafter it started the second one. Now, for an example, let me use /t. Right, if I use /t, now you can see it prints hello, and then end. End means it will print the printing part, ending with a tab space. Slash t means a tab space. Then it provides me a tab space and it gives me the output of the next one. Even here, that this is what we have by default, slash n. If you have slash n, you can see hello, and it goes to the next line. By default, we have this. By default, it is slash n. Just remember like that. The default value of the print parameter, print function n parameter is slash n. Therefore, if you change it by anything, then that would replace like that. If you have multiple spaces like this, then it would have hello and then that multiple spaces and it will end like that. If you have multiple spaces, 1, 2, 3, and again multiple spaces, something like this, then that would print it like this, hello, some spaces, 1, 2, 3, and again some spaces. Therefore, you could replace this with anything. Therefore, the end with replace, then ends with replace by whatever you define here. Therefore, if you use no string, no spaces, then just empty string, then it will print hello, and then nothing to print here, then the next line start from the same point. Therefore, hello world, no spaces. Right now, since I want to use that, because the first for loop is to go line by line, the second for loop is to line in the same line prints, multiple asterisks. Therefore, that's why here I'm using this end function here. Right, okay, let me explain what happens when I equals 0. Initially, I is equal to 0. I is equal to 0. Then the j starting from 0 and j runs up to 1. The for loop starts from j in range 1. 1 means when I equals 0, right? The for loop here it checks now. This is how the first for loop looks like. Now the first for loop, now here I in range n means here if I have entered 10 like 0 to 9, if it is 0 to 5, for an example, if it is n equals 5, if n equals 5, now for loop will run only for how many times? Now in the first for loop, now I value starting from I value is going to be 0, I value going to be 1, and I value going to be 2. Then I'm going to say n equals 4, n equals 4, right? It's easy. Then I equals 3, and then it's going to stop. This is how this goes if n is equals to 4. And each time when I equals 0, now j value. Let's say now for the j value, now let's assume that is taken by m. Right now, initially this time, m value, that means up to 1. I plus 1 value we have, I equals 0, then I plus 1 means 1. Then here, let's say I will have it as I plus 1. I plus 1 value. I plus 1 value. Right, then I plus 1 value is 1. Therefore, the j value is going to be, now the j value is going to be starting from 0 and up to 1. Therefore, when j equals 0, it's going to run. And this time, I plus 1 value would be 2. Therefore, now, here, this time it's going to run. Okay, now let me have this separately. Now, I plus 1 value is 1. Therefore, here, j value is 0. Right. And thereafter, when I equals 1, I plus 1 value going to be 2. Right? I plus 1 value going to be 2. Therefore, j value is going to be j equals 0 and j equals 0 and j equals 1. Right. And the next time when I equals 2, I plus 1 value would be 3. Therefore, j value is going to be j equals 0, j equals 1, and j equals 2. And when I equals 3, I plus 1 value would be 4. Then it's going to be j equals 0, starting from j is equals 0, and j is equals to 1, and j is equals to 2, and j is equals to 3. Right. Now, this is how when the first for loop runs. Now, I value represent the first for loop, and the j value represent that each time the for loop runs, how many times the second for loop runs. Okay. When I equals 0, the first time the for loop runs, the first for loop runs, then I plus 1 become 1. Therefore, the second for loop will run 1 time. Then it's gonna print, now it's gonna print an asterisk. Now it's gonna print an asterisk. And thereafter, it will print on the asterisk and the cursor remains on the same line. The second for loop finishes, then print statement move the cursor to the next line. Right, I become 1. I become 1 means j value I plus 1 become 2. No? Therefore, the second for loop run 2 times. Therefore, again when j equals 0, it's going to start printing asterisk. And again j become 1. Again, it's going to same line, it's going to print the asterisk and cursor stays on the same line. And for loop finishes, then it goes to the next line, print statement, then it move to the cursor to the next line. Then I become 2. When I become 2, 2 plus 1 means 3. Therefore, the second for loop will run 3 times. Then, first time when j equals 0, it's going to print the asterisk. Again, iterate, j equals 1, it's going to print the asterisk. Again, j equals 2, it's going to print the asterisk in the same line. And cursor remains in the same line. And for loop finishes, it goes to the next line print statement. Therefore, it's going to go to the next line. When I equals 3, that means that I equals 3 because let's say n value is 4. No? Therefore, when I equals 3 also for loop runs. Then 3 plus 1 means 4. Therefore, 4 times the second for loop gonna get executed. When j equals 0, it's gonna print an asterisk here and stays on the same line. And then j equals 2, it print asterisk, stays on the same line. J equals 3, prints, and j equals 2, print an asterisk and stays on the same line. J equals 3, it prints another asterisk, stays on the same line, and for loop finishes, then it goes to the print statement, it goes to the next line. That's why here, after printing this, it's going to give you a space. That's why it's going to give you a space after printing this. Right, now it will give you a space. Now see, every time there's a space, right, after printing this, because after printing the last line, it gives us space, and then I become 4. Then since range is up to 4, n equals 4, no, therefore the for loop, the first for loop condition false, therefore it won't run. Therefore it will stop printing, the for loop get stopped. Therefore this will be the output. Is this clear? Is this clear? Any questions, please ask. Okay, as a homework, try to print the other way around. Try to print the other way around. Other way around means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. Likewise. Then try to print this as a homework. And then there are many other star patterns as well. If you Google it, for loop star patterns, then you will see multiple patterns are there. Then you could try to build the logic, how to do those things. Right, figure it out. And if you have any questions, you can ask now. Any questions, please? Are you okay with this n method print function with the n parameter? Is that clear? Yes, good. Right. Any other questions? Please ask now. Okay, right. If there is no questions, then we can wind up for today. Thank you very much then. We'll wind up for today. Thank you very much.